Alright, what you see here is the Bahama Hugger ceiling fan in my grandmother's living room. This is the biggest childhood fan for me that's a Hugger fan, or a generic Hugger more specifically. It's the first one I ever saw as a kid, and this fan is partially the main reason why I got into Hugger fans in general. It's actually probably the first vintage ceiling fan I can remember seeing as a kid. I mean, obviously some 90s hunters and such. But this is probably one of the earliest ones I've ever seen as a kid. I mean, coming here as a toddler and such. But yeah, this fan's been up for about 30 years now. You know, at the time I'm filming this, right now I'm 24, so it was put up a few years before I was born. The I know right on the motor has the info. Right there. It's from April of 1991. Not April. Yeah, April. So, yeah, actually, as of this month, it's actually 30 years old. But, yeah. I remember playing with this fan a lot as a kid. And, yeah, it's just, like, when I think of, like, what influenced my love for these generic looking huggers, it's definitely this fan right here. I remember seeing in the Home Depot catalogs the Hampton Bay Chat and reminded me a lot of this fan and such. The only thing is that it had a 3 light that was integrated in on a 4 light like this one does. But yeah, my grandmother did say I could have this. So now that she's not living here no more until they figure out what they're gonna do with the house, is just sitting here basically. Due to the fact that her memory is starting to go really quick with her Alzheimer's and such. Starting to not Alzheimer's, well, early signs of it, but yeah. But yeah, it's been like this ever since I was a kid. It had this pull chain on it. My grandmother had gotten it because she knows my dad likes deer. He's a very rustic person. He likes nature a lot, and she got this since she knows he likes it. So it makes her think of him. So yeah, I've always thought that it would look cool if they had one with deer on it and another one with like a fishing, well, kind of like a rustic, like a hunting and fishing feel to it. Whenever I get this fan, I definitely plan to do that. Probably like put another one on it. But yeah, I go ahead and show off the lights. Definitely gives off a good amount of lighting. What my grandmother would do over the years is so it wouldn't always have just all 4 lights on. She would loosen up the bulbs for the ones that she wanted on. It's actually not a bad idea. I actually do that sometimes with the low profile plus in my kitchen. But yeah, this fan, especially with the lights on, I really love how it looks. And the blades are not reversible; they are just oak on both sides. And there's the Bahama logo. But yeah, let me just show the top side. It's plain oak, which is I think is a bit strange. Cause a lot of '90s huggers that had oak blades, either polished brass or antique brass, they usually would have them at least reversible to a different finish. But yeah, let's go ahead and start off on the low speed. I'm just doing a video of all the fans in here one last time, and then whenever we remove them, that'll be it. So I've just been taking the time to film them all since the house is basically vacant. Everything's still inside, there's nobody really living here at the moment. I've been checking up on the place every other week just to make sure everything's fine. has a nice low speed to it. It's not a very fast one, which is nice. And something I think that would cause that bearing sound or that ticking sound is I don't think it was the actual bearings. Because you hear right now, it's not making. I think it was a wire cap that was hitting it. I mean, you can kind of hear it, but I know it's just not as like, I don't know. It might be a wire cap. I'm not too sure. I don't know. But yeah, the light chain is not the original one. The original one got stiff, so I put up basically this is one of the spare light pole chains that I had. And I just gave it to my dad so he can swap it since he knows how to do that. Now, something I've always found interesting is there's a switch over there that turns it on and off. It's like a dimmer looking one or 3-speed one, but it doesn't do anything to the fan. The only thing, like, it doesn't adjust the speed or the dimming or anything. It just, you push it, it turns on and it turns off. I'm guessing maybe they wired it incorrectly so it wouldn't dim it or anything. Or it could have been from what was here before. But like if I turn it or anything, it doesn't like change the speeds on it. But yeah, I remember seeing those type of pull chains with like the deer one on it a lot as a kid. Now they're not as, you don't see them as often. And yep, it's making a bearing sound, or the ticking sound, more specifically. So yeah, I'm not sure if it is the bearings. It might be like a wire cap hitting it. Even so, it's definitely a sound that's childhood for me. And yeah, this fan is like one that my grandmother is very attached to because this is actually her first ceiling fan. She's had various portable fans over the years, but this is her first ceiling fan. From what I remember her telling me, a cousin of hers that was up in Canada put it up, as she is of French-Canadian descent. But yeah, this fan, it's really a good breeze on medium. Now, she told me that this came with the light kit. Now, I'm not 100% sure on that. I feel it's more so that she bought the fan and they bought with the light kit at the same time. Because I've seen a lot of pictures of these new in the box and I don't see any with a light kit. Or a hugger fan that looks identical. Maybe they did sell it unit packs together. I'm not 100% sure. But I really don't think so. Because a lot of huggers of this style from in like the 80s and 90s, a lot of times they didn't come with a light kit. You'd have to buy a light kit for it. Well, yeah, even on the medium speed, it's moving a good breeze. Well, yeah, like this is like one of the earliest ceiling fans I still remember from when I was a kid, and one of the few that are still around that I'm able to see in person to this day. The coastal breeze that I removed from my aunt's kitchen and replaced with the Hunter Oakhurst. The Hampton Bay carousel that was in my living room for many years and I still have to this day. Those are like the three ceiling fans I can think of off the top of my head that I remember from a kid when I was like 3, 4 years old that I still see or have. I mean, obviously there's quite a few ceiling fans out in public that I still remember, like the ones from Sam Willow's in the arcade. Very, there's other places, but like the three that like come to mind that like are the earliest ones that I got to that I've seen are like these three right here. Noticing that the fan chain is starting to get a little bit stiff. Oh, it's always been a bit stiff, but I'm noticing it's starting to get a little bit more stiff as of recently. Now, each time I came by just to check up on things, I would run all four fans, more specifically this one on the low speed, just to let them run and such. Just for like a few minutes. That way they're not just sitting there and the bearing's getting stiff and such. That isn't, I mean, isn't with anything in general. If it's something that like isn't being used and it's just sitting around for a long time, it can develop issues and such. I always thought about whenever, like before my grandmother moved with my dad, that would have been cool if I put a 5-bladed genetic hugger, very similar to this, to have like a 5-blade version of what's in the kitchen, like a vintage looking 5-bladed hugger and a more modern one in the kitchen. At the same time, around this time period, you'd see more 4-bladed huggers, not so many 5-bladed ones. That's something that's kind of more of a mid to late 90s look, I guess. It's funny, there's times that it makes the ticking sound a lot, it's like more louder, and there's times that it's not as loud. It does move some decent air for a hugger fan. It's obviously not the greatest fan in the world, especially quality wise, but it isn't the worst air mover. Yeah, I remember. Um, what was it? What was I just about to say? Um, I don't really forgot what I was just about to say, but hopefully, I remember it. But I honestly don't even remember what I was about to say, but yeah, it's definitely a fan that I've always loved seeing as a kid and growing up. Well, at the time when I first saw it as a kid, I wasn't really a vintage fan, but now it is. But I always just like the look of it. I remember there was a period that she would have this and the Aloha Breeze, which I currently have, that she used to have in her kitchen before me and my dad replaced it with a Hampton Bay Hugger. She would leave these on running 24/7 for about a year or so, just because she wanted to keep the house cool, but then she stopped doing so. She didn't do it with the Home Trends Hugger fan in her bedroom, the white one. Yeah, now to go ahead and show it on reverse. But yeah, out of any of the fans in this house, even though this is the oldest one, like aside from that, definitely the one that she would always use the most, that she would mostly just spend most of her time in either the living room or the kitchen. But the kitchen one she wouldn't turn on as often. She would always use this one more. See, it definitely sounds like it's a wire nut that's hitting the motor. Yeah, but whenever I take it down at some point, I'll find out. Yeah, okay, it's more louder now in the reverse. Okay, it sounds like it's hitting on like those vents on the top motor. Alright, that'll be it for this video. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and stay tuned for more videos to come.